Ruby with AE2S will help with the introductions of our next panel. Jeff, are you on? I've been looking for you, but there's now 70-some people, so
I'm here if you can hear me.
Okay, there you are. Thanks for speaking up, and hopefully everybody's got the links and the site and the sound's working. So we did test the communication with the legislator. So Jeff, take it away.
All right, thanks, Lance. Again, my name is Jeff Ruby. I'm the Chief Development Officer with AE2S, and I'd like to introduce the legislative panel today. We have Senator Rich Wardner of Dickinson. He served in the North Dakota State Legislature since 1991, first as a member of the House from 91 to 98, and more recently as a senator since 1999. He is also the Senate Majority Leader. He's a past President Tempore of the Senate and a member of the Legislative Management. He has served as chair of the Midwest Legislative Conference, as well as chairman of the Sunrise Youth Bureau and a member of the Elks and Rotary Clubs. He's a graduate of Dickinson State University and Northern State University. Senator Wardner is a retired educator and the former executive director of the Dickinson Area Chamber of Commerce. We also have Representative John Nelson, who represents a large stretch of central North Dakota as District 14 member of the North Dakota House of Representatives, where he served since 1997. He presently serves as chairman of the House Appropriations Human Resources Subcommittee. He served on the Public Finance and Education Committees as well. He has served on the Executive Committee for the North Dakota Rural Water Association, as well as on the Board of Directors of the All Seasons Water Users and on the North Dakota Farm Bureau. He's a past member of the Wolford School Board, and John, correct me if I pronounce that incorrect, please, and the board of the Heart of America Hospital, and is a recipient of the American Cancer Society's Moving the Marble Award. Representative Nelson attended Minot State University and Dakota College at Bottineau in farms near Wolford. Senator Ron Sorvag of District 45 includes parts of Fargo and area to its north, has been a member of the North Dakota Senate since 2011. He serves on the Appropriations Committee and is a past director of the Prosper Farmers Elevator, past Fargo Park District Commission, and a member of the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. A graduate of Concordia College, he is a small business owner in Fargo. And Representative Cynthia Schreiber-Beck served in the North Dakota House of Representatives since 2015. She is the executive director of the North Dakota Agricultural Aviation Association and serves on the North Dakota Aeronautics Commission and the American College of Norway Foundation, USA. She is also a business owner and resides in Wahpeton. I'd like to welcome our esteemed legislative panel. And I guess with that, if any of you would like to make some opening comments, feel free. Senator Wardner, why don't we start with you?
All right. All right. Thank you, Jeff. And I just want to welcome all of you water wizards to this conference. We're as legislators, we're just out of the organizational session, so we're feeling kind of relieved. It was kind of a pressure-packed 3 days, and so it feels good to be out. What can you expect in this coming session? Number one, I'm going to start with the legislature. In order to do our business, we got to keep our legislators there. That's our foremost objective. We do not want them distancing in. We want this to be a face-to-face session. So in order to do that, we have to have some mask requirements. And so when they're in close quarters, it's going to be a mask. When we can distance, they don't need the mask, but they've got to make sure that there's distance. We cannot afford to have someone have the virus and then infect the whole body and stop the process. So the rules that we put in the past 3 days are very common sense, and they're not onerous at all. The one thing is when you come into the Capitol, you will have a temperature check. If you're if you would happen to be 100.4 or more, you will be put into what we call the doctor of the day room. We hope to have you tested for the virus there. Now you won't be able to go in, you'll have to go back out, and then you will be able to access your committees by video conference, by distance. You will not miss a beat. If you're not feeling particularly ill, but you still have the virus, you can still be a part of the process. Now, if you test less than that, your temperature is less than 100.4, not a problem. You come on in and you have to follow the requirements. You got to wear the mask, especially in the chambers, the House and the Senate chambers, when we're close together, when we're functioning. So keeping that in mind, our goal is to keep people there face to face. Now, how does that fit you people coming in? Well, you got to follow the same rules. So if you come to the Capitol and your distance, you don't have to have your mask on, but if you're with a group of people, you got to have your mask on, especially when you're in legislative territory. And what is legislative territory? Well, number one, it's the chambers, it's the Memorial Hall, and it's the committee rooms. Now, the committee rooms are not going to be set up to have you elbow to elbow. They will be spaced 6 feet apart, the chairs, so there won't be many people that will be able to be accommodated face to face in the committee rooms, but not a problem. You will, if you get there and you wanted to testify, if you've talked to the chairman, you might be testifying from out in the hallway someplace if somebody else has taken the chair. Or we would say, okay, we got you in the queue. When we're ready for you, you come on in and you testify. So there's going to be some things that are a little different, but basically it's going to be the same. But one of the nice things, you can't get to Bismarck. You want to testify. It's really important. All you got to do is get a hold of the chairman of the committee. And by the way, you'll have all that information. And let them know that you want to be in the queue to testify. They will have you. And when the time comes, it's just like we're doing right now. You will be able to testify to the committee, answer the questions, and make any comments that you feel are necessary to move that issue forward. So I think it's going to be better. It's going to be more transparent. And for those of you that say, well, I just want to keep an eye on this, I want to see what's said, you will be able to tune in and watch the proceedings, and you will know exactly what's going on. Now, not only is that going to be true, in committee, when it goes to the floor, you're going to be able to watch it on the floor, which you've had before. You could watch the legislation on the floor. But I want you to know, for legislators, if they, for some reason, aren't in the chambers, they're someplace else in the Capitol because they're having a problem with wearing a mask, or they just don't feel comfortable being in that crowded area. They're in their hotel room, or they've been quarantined at home in their hometown. They will be able to connect up just like they're there, and they will be able to testify and carry a bill in the chambers. We've got new boards, and they're video boards in both the House and the Senate. They work slick. And what's even better, that individual that is being quarantined at home, not only will they be able to testify and talk to an issue in the chambers, they will vote from their computer. They will vote from their computer. They will tell everybody that they're present right from their computer in their home. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, we've moved from the dark ages to the sunlight in one session. This is a historical session. And I'll tell you what, it's going to work. It's going to be better than before. And after we've gone through this session, you're going to say, how did we ever do it without it? With that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ruby, I'll leave it for my colleagues.
Thank you, Senator Wardner. Representative Nelson.
Good morning, everybody in the water community, and thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. First of all, just to add to, Rich was very comprehensive in his explanation of the legislative session, and I think there's just a couple of things I'd like to mention. One thing you might want to pick up when you come to the Capitol this year is a map, because many of the committee rooms have changed. I know in the House, in the appropriations process, the water commission budget is in the E&E section, and I believe they're going to be located up on the second floor in the old Supreme Court room, which is it the Prairie Room? I'm not exactly sure, but it's in the Legislative Council area, and and there is more seating there than some rooms. So there will be the opportunity to view some of the proceedings live as well. I serve in the Human Resource section, and we are switching with the Senate, and we'll be in the Harvest Room this year. And that's there's some changes, but I agree with Rich. I think we'll get through this, and ultimately, with North Dakota winters, sometimes it's not easy to get to Bismarck in the winter anyway, and this will allow everybody's ability to be part of the process, no matter where they're located. So we're hoping that things will work out as well as we possibly can. And one other thing I'd just like to mention about the process is that in the rules, there is the ability to loosen or tighten the requirements depending on where we go with COVID as the session proceeds. It's our hope that with the numbers will start to decrease, and with the vaccine coming, hopefully there will be less of an issue there. So excuse me, my phone's ringing, but that's one of those things. Anyway, I just wanted to briefly introduce myself. I am a member of the All Seasons Water Rural District, and I've been on that board since 2005, and it's been quite an experience working with water, and like you said, Jeff, in the introduction, I represent a large part of rural North Dakota, and it's as we look at how North Dakota lies and where the needs are, there's been a number of projects that have been people have waited for some up to 20-25 years for water supply in some particular areas, and I just would reiterate that there are still people waiting for water, and they have waited for that type of period of time. So we've been very patient up in our region with I'm very involved with the NAS program, the NAS project, and we're very excited that now that there is some movement in that regard, and we're looking forward to Missouri River Water being part of our district and part of our region. So I certainly support every effort to utilize the Missouri River water for North Dakota use, no matter where it's at. But I think that at sometimes, and this is a very good example of sometimes patience has to be exerted, because this session is going to be difficult, because yesterday the governor has he has a very aggressive plan for water with bonding projects. I would say that in the North Dakota House anyway, bonding has never been accepted very well. So that will have some uphill battles to occur before we will I think the House would accept the bonding mechanism. But it's on the table, and I think that's it's worthy of discussion. I think the governor made very good points yesterday in his presentation, and we know that there's needs. So we will working with Representative Schmidt in his section, I know that and Senator Storvog has been and there's a great relationship between the two chambers as far as water development in the state. We understand the needs, whether it's flood control, whether it's water supply, or whatever the case may be, and we will try and be as fair and balanced as we can in providing a step forward in this biennium. So I think at this time I'll leave it there and just wait for questions. I assume that there'll be a time for questions and answers, and I think that's hopefully we'll be able to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Nelson. Senator Storvog.
I got it turned on. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you guys for having me, everybody, for letting me take part today. I'm going to be a little repeating a little bit.
Your screen disappeared again. Sorry. Ron,
it shows me on the picture. Is it on now? It shows on my computer.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just go forward. Okay. I look the same as I did earlier. So, no, I'm showing on my screen, so I'm not sure why it's not. Wait a minute. Let me hit this.
Oh, you're good now.
That. Okay.
It now works. You fixed it.
It's okay. Okay, I'll go forward then. You know, I want to go a little bit with, first to start out, it's kind of repeating everything, but what Senator Wardner and Representative Nelson said. You know, the technology is good, and they both addressed at the committee level and everything that, but I think there's one additional step, and that's before it gets there. And I think everybody needs to understand it's going to be a little bit more effort to reach out. You're going to have to be a little more patient, a little bit more proactive, because the days of before that bill's finished or putting in of 8 of us huddling around a table quick and handwriting notes and finishing isn't going to happen. It's going to be through Zoom meetings, or it's going to be phone calls. It's more fragmented. That issue is already happening dealing with agencies. It's a different environment. I think we'll end up with a good product. I think it'll work, but we need people to be really patient and proactive on the front side of this and do the communication early, because it's just, we don't know exactly how it works with numbers of people in there, and communication is everything. So I think that's just more at the starting point as this evolves, that you do that. I'm just going to give a quick little rundown of who I am besides the bio. This will be my fourth session appropriations, but third on the water budget, or the Water Commission budget. And I am looking forward to it. It's going to start in the House this time. But it's a little bit what Representative Nelson said. First, my history. I farmed till '99. My address is Fargo. I've lived in Fargo for 40 years. But I was part of the rural. We got ditches all over if you go north of Fargo around Argusville. We're used to paying in ditches. We have rural water. And the point of bringing that, I'm very conscious of all the issues. And I think, as Representative Nelson, we all look at the whole state. It's an excellent group on water on both sides. And we do realize that everybody has needs. We really have some big projects right now. And that's with the diversion, Red River water supply, Minot's issues. And they are taking money out of there, but we're not going to forget about everybody else. We realize the pot has to be divvied up in an equal is not possible, but an equitable, fair way to try to keep everybody going. And this session is going to be extremely difficult. You look at the governor's numbers that he uses, basically got 259 million of new dollars. And there's 140 million everybody took off the table last time. So it doesn't take too much more creative math than to say we have a challenge coming ahead. So even though there is resistance to bonding, I hope people and there is more bonding than the governors, and I think Senator Wardner will speak on that later. But everybody needs to take a new, fresh, open look at bonding, because otherwise, to get these big projects moving ahead and keep it so there's plenty of resources available for all the smaller projects, which are just as important to the state, we're going to have to get something creative, or we're going to really be struggling over the next few bienniums. So I'm looking forward to questions. I always like to answer questions more than speak, because otherwise I'm only telling you what I think you want to hear. But I want to hear what you want to hear. So please do ask questions. And like I said, just be open-minded. And if you got ideas, make sure you reach out early. Use your people like Lance and stuff to reach out, because it's just going to be a little harder. It's going to be great. And I think in a couple bienniums, it's going to be normal. But there's a huge learning curve here on how we communicate and how we develop our ideas. So with that, I'd say thank you for now, and looking forward to questions.
Thank you, Senator Storvag. Representative Schreiber-Beck.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. What a pleasure to be here among these, what I call seasoned legislators. I'm not the young person in the group, but these gentlemen have years of experience, and I certainly look up to them as mentors. A little bit about myself. I always like brief introductions, actually. I'm a farm girl from Minnesota, became an educator, went into aviation, aerial spraying, and now I'm working underground with Ellingson Companies. I've been with Ellingson for about a year, and perhaps that's why I was asked to be on the panel. And with Ellingson, I'm in sales for agricultural drain plant, water management, which, so I'm coming pretty solely from the ag side as being on this panel. And having worked in agriculture practically all my life, I'm excited to have the opportunity to actually be on the panel. Back to what the previous panel members have said, I'm really excited for this session, and I hope that the opportunity for our constituents to actually communicate with us without driving, for me, about 4 hours to Bismarck via these methods will continue even far beyond the COVID. And I think it's an excellent opportunity to actually serve our citizens better. So I'm really pleased that we've made these great strides with technology, and we're all it's a learning curve for everyone. So again, I'll echo the be patient piece. As you know, I'm going to go right into some of the thoughts that I have right now on the water management. I had the opportunity to work with Sean Fredericks and people from Ellingson, the Richland County Water Resource District people and personnel, mainly Monica and Justin and myself. And we actually looked at that tile permitting process. And I had some real personal experience with it, because I was tiling some of my own ground, and it was very cumbersome, time consuming, expensive for the water districts. And so we looked at it, and after I had completed the hours of work on my own permit, I decided that, Monica and I had a discussion, and she said, well, maybe we can work on this. And I said, I'd be happy to do so. So it isn't what has come about is a change in the permitting. There is a proposed bill that's right now in Legislative Council about the permitting process for tiling projects. And I think it's going to provide some efficiencies, which is always cost savings for the water resource districts. And I think I'm really pleased with what the number of people that have come together to actually put this in place. And as you all know, drain tile is beyond just the ag piece. And the ag piece in North Dakota, I believe some old figures were the cash receipts from North Dakota ag is over $8.6 billion. And 90% of our land in North Dakota is either farmed or ranched. So it is a really big industry in our state. And sometimes I think there's maybe not the emphasis on the agriculture. It's always been here, will always be here. And the tiling methods are, great for the ag piece, but also good for roads and infrastructure. In our wet years that we've recently had, we've seen tremendous in some cases, the rebuilding of roads has been excessive. And of course, we're depending upon, a lot of times, dependent upon FEMA dollars to do so. Will the FEMA dollars still be there? So although I'm targeting the permitting process right now, I think we need to have a broader look at all of this and start looking at our subwater sheds and also our road maintenance, et cetera, and see what we can do in order to be preventative in nature. The code that we're looking at is 6132 for that drainage code, and I'd be happy to share any questions or, respond to any questions or what the changes have been. I won't go into it right now. Typically, when working with the Water Resource District, there's concerns about assessment drains and how maintenance is looked at from the Water Commission versus rebuilding or reconstructing. There's always money issues, and we're well aware of that. And the projects we really need to continue that, but be looking in a very holistic nature at that. I think probably the interesting part is when I was doing some of my research on this, I think the North Dakota Association of Counties had some excellent points in their resolutions regarding this, and I just want to read that, and I give kudos to them for this. Under water management and transportation infrastructure, North Dakota water management laws are important for improving land productivity of our state and in balancing the property interests of both upstream and downstream landowners. However, current water statutes contain uncertain and conflicting division of authority and fiscal responsibility. This association supports statutory changes seeking to clarify roles and responsibilities of the respective political subdivisions and align the decision-making with the fiscal responsibilities. They also have Water Resource District responsibilities, which is item 12 in the resolutions. We believe legal assessment drains provide crucial drainage relief for North Dakota farmers, provide outlets for ag and tile drainage, and protect local, county, and state road infrastructure from damages due to sustained saturation and uncontrolled drainage. We support the responsibility of water resource districts to construct, maintain, and improve legal assessment drains for the benefit of the agricultural economy in North Dakota, for the benefit of road authorities throughout the state, and for the benefit of North Dakota landowners and taxpayers. At that, I'll be happy to answer questions as we move forward. And again, I'm actually very honored to be serving on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Schreiber-Beck. Lance, do we have any questions that have been submitted?
I do not have any that have been texted to me or chatted to me, Jeff, but I think there's certainly a lot of interest and Senator Wardner foreshadowed a little bit or previewed the bond idea that he has circulated. So I think there'd be a lot of interest in understanding some more of your ideas, Senator Wardner, if I could button a hold of you on that, on your ideas.
No, thank you, Lance. And I'm going to just make some general comments. First of all, the whole idea in this bonding, and especially for water, was to take the big projects out of the Resources Trust Fund for 2 biennia. That was the main thing. Now, keep in mind, why are we bonding? Number one, we're bonding because we have a stream of dedicated money. It'll come from the legacy earnings. It's not coming from the general fund. It's not coming from the actual taxpayer. It's coming from this fund that we've set up, and it's going to be generating income. The second thing, bonds can be serviced at a very low rate, less than 2%. The other thing that you need to understand is the state has already promised these big projects that they're going to fund them to a certain level. We said we're going to fund the diversion to $750 million. We've said we're going to fund the Minot project for flood control at this point. Now they're going to need more, but to 190 some million. We've made those commitments, and we've made a not as big a commitment to the Red River Valley water supply, but we've said we want these things to go forward. If we don't do something, then this next biennium, things are going to bog down because they will get most of the money, but it won't be enough to really move them the way they should be. And guess what happens to everybody else? You get nothing. You get the crumbs. So the idea was to I've got in mind about $413 million, and that is to move the diversion, move the Minot flood control, move the Red River Valley water supply, and also, yes, help WAS out. And some of you may say, WAS, why are we helping them? Well, listen, we made them borrow so much money and they have to pay it off with water sales. And now with fracking and the oil industry way down, they're set up to fail. The state does not want that project back. And they have gotten less money from the state than anybody else. And don't worry, when you figure it out, they will be still less than anybody else getting money from the state. And so we've got them included. And again, the whole idea is that we free up the Resources Trust Fund for a couple of bienniums so everybody else can get some things done. And the other thing is to move those other projects forward. And we're using the bonding money. And there's more to the bonding than just water, but we would be able to move those projects forward. Remember, inflation will be around 3%, and we can service the bonds for 1.6, 1.7. It's money management, and we would not sell bonds until the money was needed. Don't forget, there's $326 million laying in the Water Commission fund that they can start spending, and then they would have this money for backup. So when they needed it, they could do the bonds and keep it going. So that is the general idea. How does it compare to the governor's? The governor's plan is to set up a revolving loan fund, and that what would happen is when you needed the money, you go to the loan fund, and I'm not sure what percent he's expecting you to pay, but I'm guessing about 2% to borrow that money. Do your construction, and then when your money comes through the Resources Trust Fund, you pay it off, but you'd still have to pay the interest. So if you were the diversion, for example, over the next 6 biennia, you would get, let's say you got 50 million. When that 50 million came, you'd already borrowed it from the revolving loan fund, and your project is going, and that's a good thing, but then you would pay it back with interest to that revolving loan fund. So that's kind of the difference. I'm proposing grants, he's proposing loans. And just so you all know, I was in Fargo. I went through the whole process, looked at what Fargo has done. I've been to Minot. I've been out to Williston and talked to those people. And we've gone up to Carrington to talk about the Red River Valley water supply. So I've had feet on the ground looking at these projects. And I came away from the water topics meeting in Fargo in September, and I said, because I had proposed loans too. Come back from Fargo from the water topics, and I said, they're not going to borrow the money. Fargo's already got the WIFIA money. They've got the low interest money. Why would we want to do another one? So that's why I came up with grants rather than loans. So that's a kind of the whole thing in a nutshell, Lance.
Thanks, Senator Wardner. Anyone else on the panel? And maybe just a bit of housekeeping. Lance, I think, did note a chat to everyone. For anybody who's on the meeting and wants a question, put a question in front of our panel, please use that chat function, and it can post to everyone or to Lance or myself, and we will make sure we get it asked. But maybe along that topic, and Representative Nelson, I think you brought up bonding a little bit from the House perspective prior, as did Senator Sorvag. So any other comments from the group about the discussion regarding bonding and water funding?
Jeff, this is Senator Sorvag again, and I said it before in my introduction, but I think we just need to really seriously look at this bonding, no matter how much objection there might be to that concept, because as Senator Wardner said, it's going to be a huge struggle for the next 2 bienniums to keep all this stuff on track if we don't. Oil is going to be the backbone, and it is the Resources Trust Fund. But because of the volatility of that commodity, this is getting harder and harder. Everybody out there involved realized what happened. We started last session, Senate, we used 350 million. That's what the numbers showed. Then come to the February numbers and it went up 80 million. So the House used 430. Well, as you know, it all ended up, we lost about 150, 60, whatever it ends up, a million of that. And that's not only difficult for the state, but I think we're all conscious how difficult that is for every entity. You can't plan. And I know there's ideas of going to a cash system to evolve, which is no way with the dollars we have now, but someday a lot of us would like to see come to that. So when we budget that biennium, that cash is actually in the bank, but that's going to take a long time. But the reason for bringing everything up, bonding is the only way we can do that. We need that 2 biennium window to get the house in order, get these huge projects down the road some, and that frees up the opportunities for everybody. The bonding isn't just to help the big four, it's to make the whole system work so there's resources available for everybody, because we all do realize the whole state's got water issues and will forever, whether it's supply, flooding, or what, drainage, anything. So this is an attempt, and yeah, I'm very supportive of the bonding. And whether it's the governor's plan or the leader's plan, that'll be the debate that comes up once we get there in January. But people just, I hope, really look at this, and at the end of the day, if you do support it, let people know that you do support it, because I think it's the opportunity to really keep our state going forward, especially when the money is reasonable now to borrow it, and there's a lot of opportunities to get construction done. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Senator.
this is Mary, and I don't have a chat because I'm on an iPad. So if I may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we manage, operate, maintain the pipeline project for the people of the state, as everybody's well aware. And my deal with the state engineer is, you know, if things go south for us, I'm just locking the doors and giving John the keys. So I totally get it. We do need to do this. However it works, you know, Rich is right on with his plan, way beyond that. And, you know, we're in Southwest North Dakota. I'm an official recorder. So far this year, we just broke 8 inches of moisture for the year. We've got smart farmers all over. We've got drain tiling going on in Dunn County. We know a lot about soil health. In the rest of the state, the beet lime is disappearing because if you no-till farm, which many do, after about 10, 15 years, you destroy your soil health. And so they're using beet lime, for instance, to improve their soil health. We have a different issue with Southwest in that we now have the lime residuals handling facility, and we have a farmer who is hauling our lime, but it's not working as well as he would like. And that's because drinking water lime production is a lot different than beet production. And I just want Larry Lewig's committee to have NDSU do a study on our lime this session. That'd be an easy thing because you always have to pay to play, you know, with NDSU. So that's my comments as far as the ag side, I guess, for now. Thank you.
Representative Nelson, you made some reference in your opening comments about the bonding reception in the House, and certainly it's not a secret that it's probably a more conservative body, and not asking you to speak for your 93 colleagues or well, between you and Representative Schreiber-Beck, I guess there's 92 other folks. But is there more potential for some responsiveness or some support, maybe is a better word, in the House of Representatives? Last session, Senator Wardner was a champion again for, I think it was 2275, if I'm not mistaken, for the bill to bond on legacy fund earnings at that time for some investments. So some of that was a revolving loan fund and so forth, and it did pass the Senate pretty strongly, but didn't get very far in the House. Is there maybe a little more receptive to this in the House this year?
Well, Lance and the group, I think that it's the dynamics. It's been a real uphill battle. I think there is, because yes, you look at the dynamics. First of all, 2 years ago, we had higher expectations with the Resource Trust Fund. And Senator Wardner talked about the $320 million that's available in the State Water Commission budget. So that's been two of the arguments against bonding in the past, is that we have cash or the availability of money for projects if we choose to go that way, and that's always been taken as the preferred method. Now this session, one of the Resource Trust Fund revenue is certainly at risk, because yesterday in budget section we heard from Moody's, and they do the analysis for the budget projections, and it was there's not a lot of good news as far as oil revenue in the upcoming biennium. They showed that as the recovery takes place in the post-COVID world, that the U.S. oil supply will be the last to rebound. They expect that the worldwide oil supply will rebound first, and we're at least 2 years out as far as seeing some real increases in oil supply for the United States and in North Dakota oil. So I think I think from a safe budgetary standpoint, I think this $10 million a month influx into the Resource Trust Fund is probably what we can expect in the next biennium from a good news standpoint. I hope it doesn't. We don't have another hiccup in that, but that's probably where we're going to be. So, yeah, I think the discussion will reach more people. I mean, I don't want to be the doom and gloom person, but I just know that it's been a struggle in the past. I think we need to really prioritize what is needed. I know in visiting with Representative Schmidt, at length about this is where we what we can actually do in the upcoming biennium, and then see what the dollar number that we need to plug in, and that's part of the same process that's used every session. But I to answer your question, finally, I think it's probably going to be more, that tool will be talked about more in the House than ever before, and it might have a better reception.
Thank you, Representative Schreiber-Beck. You sit in the same chamber. You have any additional or different comments?
Well, of course, I'm not on appropriations, so very small voice in all of it. I would like to see what works, and obviously the whole body needs to be convinced of a lot of things. If we want access to funds, we're going to have to do something. So bonding is not such a negative, and what Representative Nelson said is correct. If there was cash, okay, use the cash. But I believe what Senator Wardner said, what's been used and what's left are the crumbs, and a lot of those projects that are probably necessary to move forward do not get attention and do not get done. So if we can bond and there is resistance to it, it's obvious to everyone. Thank you.
So it's Mary, can I
mentioned,
comment again?
Representative,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
do you have a question, Mary?
Just that, I talk to oil boys from all over the country on a regular basis, whether it be Marathon or, you name it, from Texas to Wyoming, and they're all waiting for it to come back. And they know it's going to be a while. That's all at this point. They're right on. And, you got the Bastiats and that whole group and in the House. All I can say is good luck.
Thanks for that segue. One of the things that we found ourselves with water is we are exclusively depending on that 20.5% of the oil and gas extraction taxes, which funds the Resources Trust Fund. And for a long time, of course, a portion of the tobacco settlement dollars funded the Water Development Trust Fund, but that was lost recently. So it funds maybe more appropriately some human services projects, and so not a complaint there. But is it time, or maybe past time, or what are all of your thoughts on how we identify other revenue sources? Because the water needs, of course, we all know they're great. Just in this year's water development plan that the Water Commission is undertaking, it's nearly $700 million of just next biennium needs for state funding. What ideas would you offer, or suggestions could you give this group on additional dedicated sources of revenue streams for water projects?
Well,
I'll start with you, Senator Wardner.
Well, here's what I would say. Let's see if we can get this bonding package passed. Let's see where we're at 2 biennium from now. And maybe some of the legacy earnings could be used, because remember this, people need to understand that legacy earning is going to grow and grow and grow as we go forward, because the principal is going to get larger. If people are patient, that legacy fund is really going to be a big, big asset for the North Dakota, to the taxpayer, to infrastructure that we need in our state. But we got to be a little bit patient, and we got to look down the road a little bit. But I really believe that after we get through the 2 biennium, let's see where oil is. Let's see if it's still able to fund the needs. Remember, when some of these big projects are done, that shouldn't take as much money for maintenance and keeping them going. So I just would like to say that when you look at this bonding package that we've put out there, or I'm putting out there, and I think the governor the same way, but although, like I said, his is more of a low interest loans, it covers everybody in the state in water projects. I don't care who you are, you benefit from this, because when you take the big money people out, then there's some resources for other water projects in the state. Everybody benefits, and that's what we want. We're not being parochial here. I'm from Southwest North Dakota. Southwest Water is going to benefit because there's going to be more in the Resources Trust Fund for them. But we're going to be able to, and so will there be for everybody else. So I just think it's a no-brainer that we do bonding. And again, I want to repeat, why are we doing it? Number one, we have a dedicated stream, and it's going to be there. Number two, to service the bonds, they're as low as it's ever been. And so, and remember that if we don't do anything, inflation will eat us up. So I just think it's a big deal in money management for the state of North Dakota.
This is John. Lance, I think your question does explain the challenge that we have as legislators. You know, the fact that the human service budget was in need of there's so many issues in North Dakota that need attention, and that diversion of the tobacco settlement dollars in the last session was a huge impact, had a huge impact on water and education as far. But the fact of the matter is that if you're looking at other options, if the bonding wouldn't go forward, and this couldn't happen at a worse timing spot, but I think I've mentioned this almost every session I've been in the appropriations committee. The fact that the resource trust fund now is the revenue source for the state water commission salaries and operations. That's $25 million that is plus that could be used for projects that's used to operate the state offices. That, in my opinion, in a pure system, that's a general fund obligation. But of course, we don't need another draw of $25 million in the general fund at this point in time. But that's something that could be looked at as one of those solutions if bonding isn't able to be done. And I think Senator Wardner makes a very good argument for doing that. I'm not trying to be a negative voice here. I just know that Mary said that we have a different body in the House, and they've been very reluctant to go down this road. So it's very early, and it's too early for us to get any indication if how things have changed, if they've changed at all. But I'm hopeful that the discussion will lead to the best decision making, and that's we have to be responsible no matter how we fund projects, and not everybody is going to get everything that they want or are asking for, and that probably won't change in this biennium as it has in the past.
Senator Sorbog or Representative Schreiber,
Yeah.
do you have any?
This Senator Sorbog, I just want to expand a little both on what John and Senator Wardner I think this is just a transition period. Government always goes through that, so it's not, but right now we've got two things going on. A resource trust, obviously, as you all know, is dependent on oil. And we're not sure what the future of oil is. It's going to be there, it's going to be part of it, but whether it's $50 or $30 a barrel, but really the big question, and Senator Wardner was on that committee and with a lot of other leadership, and what do we do with the legacy earnings? And we're still early in that process. We're only going into the second biennium that those funds are available. And I've had bills, and there's a lot of bills going for it. So was alternate funding possible? Is the earnings from legacy possible for water? Yeah. But first we got to decide, does the state want to continue their level of support? And if we're going to, then we have to look at that others. But right now, what bonding does, it gives us a 2 biennium window to continue a lot of things that we have been doing in water, helping all you people out, keep your projects going, while the state kind of sorts out, because we've got to get a long-term vision on these legacy earnings. And until we do that, it's pretty hard to commit them to too many things. And this bonding is just a little piece of their earnings. So I look at it just as a breathing room for 2 bienniums. Let's get these big projects, keep them going, make sure everybody else is going forward. And this is the best opportunity. And that discussion of other funding needs to be part of that discussion as we go into this session. We need to look out more than just getting through the next biennium. Thank you.
Senator Schreiber, anything to add?
Okay, Lance, it's Mary.
Mary, can I call? I've got a couple of people who've asked
Sure,
offer
certainly.
questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Cliff Isendorf had a question or observation he'd like to offer, but I can't see it now, so maybe I'll just call on you, Cliff.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. The the reason that I look at this, and the oil income is going to be down for 2 years or more. So when I look at the income coming down, so why don't we look at what is going to replace this source of energy, solar and wind? Why don't we look to put a tax to bring back some of the lost income from oil on the new source of energy, solar or wind?
Any of our policymakers have a reaction or?
Well, this is Senator Wardner, and I will tell you, we have been down that trail to make sure that we get everybody, all the energy sources on the same page. And I will tell you that wind does pay a tax, but most of it has been going to the locals. It goes to the county level. Now we've got it set up that when they repower and when they redo, that the tax will be increased to 4.5%, and a third of it will go to the state, but it's not going to be enough to replace that. And solar, that's a good one. I guess we haven't thought that we're going to have much solar, but the thing is that there are some solar projects in the state of North Dakota. So you make a good point, and we need to look at that for solar. However, I don't think it would be enough to replace what oil has been putting into that. But good comment. Thank you.
Any of the other legislators have any comments you'd like to respond to Cliff's question?
Cindy here. Yeah, interesting on the solar. I was just approached about a 3,500 acre solar, what do we call farm in the Red River Valley. And I'm not sure where the progress is on that. I just learned about it a few days ago. I had heard about it, but hadn't had any communication about it. So I guess some of those probably do need to be in place when we're starting to see this. We see it in Minnesota as I drive around north of the Moorhead area and east. I see quite a bit of solar right now, but it's coming. So it's relatively interesting.
I think it's too early to tax it. You know, look at Spain and what they're doing. Wind energy, I remember the sessions when we're fighting over who has wind rights, let alone hunting or mineral rights, you know? Sorry, I'm just commenting.
Jeff Ruby, do you have any questions that are texted you? I have one more, but didn't want to dominate you as the co-moderator.
Go ahead, Lance. I didn't have any questions that came to me.
Okay,
Lance, this is Rich. I just want to make one more comment. Remember, when we do put solar, I'm going to tell you the local political subs are going to want their share out of that. They're going to, so it's going to be the state kind of competing against the locals for that tax. And so, but I'm glad Cliff brought it up, because I think we need to take a real good look at it before it gets too far down the road when it comes to solar. So I do appreciate his question.
I have a question here from Jim Oderman, and I'm sure invite you, Jim, to speak up and clarify it. But the conversation that has been offered in this call, and then I think also the governor's proposal for the bond, would utilize income from the legacy fund. The amount that's transferred at the end of each biennium would be, a portion of that would be used to pay those bonds. Is there a concept potentially use the legacy fund principal or the corpus itself as far as investment? It would seem to me that could be a source for a revolving loan fund, could be right from within the legacy fund itself. And I think that the State Investment Board has talked about diverting or using some of its investments that presently go to Wall Street or to international equities and so forth, maybe to invest in North Dakota. Do you have any reaction to that? And Jim, please speak up if I misconstrued your chat question and you would like it asked a different way.
No, Lance, I think you covered
Did I get it, Jim?
The question that I had to deal with, the resolution from the North Dakota Water Coalition about some of the principal infrastructure development within North Dakota. And I was just kind of trying to get a reaction from the panel members as to, is there any traction for that? And what is the long-term ideas relative to the legacy fund?
Well, Lance, this is Rich, and I'll just tell you, there is a tremendous debate going on behind the scenes on that. Now, I know that out in public, they're saying we want to use, why isn't some of that legacy principal invested in North Dakota? And I'm telling you, it's not as simple as you think it is. And we are trying to work on getting some of that principal invested in North Dakota. But remember, if we want to hit our marks as far as returns, you need to get it out there, and you got to get so that the fund managers can put it where they get the best return. That doesn't mean that it's going to always be in North Dakota. However, everybody says, well, when we got that much money, we should be able to invest some. I agree. And all I can tell you right now, Jim, is that we are working hard behind the scenes to bring some of that principal and invest it in North Dakota. In fact, we're working with the insurance commissioner. I don't want to blow his cover, but he is working on it because he's on the investment board. And we're working on it to kind of be partners on the bonding bill that I'm proposing, as well as using some of those legacy principles. The biggest thing you need to understand that some of that principal money from the legacy fund, the Bank of North Dakota has, and they use it in what is called a CD match program. And that's what we're working through, and we're trying to figure out how we can do that. It seems so simple, but every time you say, well, why don't we do this? Then you get, well, it isn't going to work. We can't use it for that. Well, the biggest thing is they don't want it, the bank, if it goes over to the bank CD match program, they are not interested in long-term loans, but we're working through that. And so for all of you out there, if you're wondering why, well, so is a few of us others wondering why. We're working on it. And I'm hoping that it'll be a part of our proposal as we go into this next session, that we will use some of those principal dollars for investment in North Dakota.
So can I follow up with my chairman? You know, we set up the legacy fund for future generations. That's the purpose of it. We all know that water and sewer, anything underground is zeroed out. People can see roads, they can see bridges, they can see all the things that are in great need. If we're building for future generations, it should be for water. That's my take. So I'll fight that one to the death.
Any of your other legislators, Senator or representatives, have additional comments to add on to what Senator Wardner provided?
Lance, this is John. I agree with Rich's analysis. I think and this is strictly from a House perspective. What we're being advised is that we have to look at the fund balances and the earnings, and it's, to put it in very simplistic terms, if it's invested in North Dakota, the returns won't be as great as they are if it's currently invested the way it is today. So that's one aspect. The other thing that comes with when you get into the use of principal money in the legacy funds from a House perspective, now you're past the wading pool. You're diving into the deep water politically, and I don't know from a House perspective how good of swimmers we are yet. So I would be reluctant to say that would be met with total enthusiasm in the House.
Lance, I'd like to follow up on that. There is $400 million for legacy fund that is put over to the Bank of North Dakota. They can use it. It isn't all sitting over there, but if they want it, they can get it for this CD match program. So it's not like there isn't a vehicle for it. It's already there, but it's still the thing we're dealing with is long-term investments. But we're going to get through that, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of people in the state of North Dakota that are saying, why not invest something in North Dakota? Now, I think we can do both. I don't think we're going to hurt the fund any, because there's a certain amount of that money that is in low interest CD investments. It rotates throughout time. It doesn't stay there, but it's there, and there's no reason why we couldn't take advantage of some of that and figure out a way to use that for North Dakota.
So I want to get into more budget stuff, and that is, we've got the governor's budget now, and it's flat. It's reduction. State Water Commission is very fortunate. They're a special funded agency. They're at 90 FTEs. They could use 120, for what's coming. At least, we're taking over a lot of responsibility that the commission used to do for our project. We're very fortunate that we can do that. They need more FTEs this session. So good luck.
Representative Schreiber-Beck or Senator Sorbog, any comments on using the legacy fund corpus?
This Senator Sorbog, I would touch on that. I can only talk as a personal legislator. I'm totally opposed to any concept of us touching the principal, but taking part of it and reinvesting as they're talked, I think it's a good idea. And like Senator Wardner said, there is some already going through the bank and CDs. But if we're going to invest in North Dakota, we need to look at the return, because if we're just investing in ourselves, it does come out the same. But if we do it at a discounted rate and lower the returns, then we're going to have less earnings to use too. And so it's a real philosophical, and it's a difficult. And Senator Wardner says it's much better. I mean, he's on the front lines of all this negotiation and all that, what's been going on with legacy earnings. But I think it needs to stay in the discussion as long as we're very, very careful, because I know a lot of investment people are always uncomfortable if you invest in yourself. But I think we need to believe in North Dakota and look at it. But we need to, if we do reduce our earnings, then we got to realize we got less legacy earnings to spend too. So it kind of all comes around in a circle. But everything should be on the table except spending the principal. That's my opinion.
From my standpoint, Lance, I guess, data, if we can look at some projections on data as to what returns might be in North Dakota, and it's very hard to anticipate what that might be, but also knowing that continued dollar flow in is probably reduced. So in order to, I'm pretty much a data person, so I would, like to see the projections, and obviously I can't do that. I'm not able to do that on my own, but that would be interesting to look at that. And I sincerely I'm not a North Dakota native, but I sincerely appreciate living here and what the state does and how they do invest in their people. So I think that would be, wise to do so.
Thank you for that. I have a question, or Ken Royce, a guy who doesn't retire very good. He is just ending his term as chairman of the Garrison Diversion Conservancy District, but yesterday became the new chairman of the Water Coalition, has a question for you. So Ken, if you could unmute and ask your question.
Oh, okay, Lance, I think I'm unmuted. I believe you can hear me. Thumbs up. So for our panel, here's my question. The proposal from the governor's office yesterday and the bonding proposal, are they irreconcilable? Is there too much of a conflict of funding philosophy or competition for resources that they couldn't be both enacted in some measure?
No, there's some commonality between the two proposals, but the biggest thing in the water part would be that the governor would do low interest loans. My proposal is going to do grants. That's going to be the difference. And I don't know, we might have a combination of both. We could, I guess, Ken, but I'm telling you, I think it'll be one or the other in this particular situation. And I don't know, the legislature will decide on which one is the best proposal. And I will be digging more into the governor's plan too. I'm not saying, oh, what I've done is the only way to go. I will definitely take a deep dive into his proposal. So I'm not, shutting the door on it at all. I'm just telling you what I see as the differences between them.
This Senator Sorbach, I just want to comment a second on it too. And I think what Senator Wardner just said, before we can really get into the details, we need to have them laid out side by side, because that just come in new. Senator Wardner, we've seen his bonding for quite a while. I know how that works. But if one's better than the other, I think we'll all go for the best deal for the people. That's what we do as our job. But right now, it's going to take a little while. Those numbers got to be laid out. The options got to be laid out. And so whether there can be a combination, both of them would be too much in their totality, but as a combination or one, I'm guessing more one or the other. But hopefully it isn't just philosophical. We can get down and just crunch them side by side, and what's the best deal for the people is what we're going to try to get out of there. At least I hope that's our objective, and I'm sure it is.
John or Cindy, Representative Nelson or Representative Schreiberbeck, anything else to?
Lance, I think both the senators have said it very well. But I truly believe that only one of the policies could be enacted this time, because to put the challenge that we have as legislators is when we open this box, that and I hope it's not a Pandora's box ultimately, but it will be, because then water is not the only interest that's going to come in to and ask for infrastructure in North Dakota. We know that last session we passed the Prairie Dog bill. Only one segment of Prairie Dog is going to get funding in this segment, and coming from a large rural area, guess who was left out? Rural North Dakota is the one that isn't getting funding. So we know that we're going to have interest in roads, infrastructure within small cities that's been deferred maintenance in sewer systems and water systems. There's so many needs in this state as we're aging. So there's going to be a number of groups that are going to be coming in looking for the same bonding mechanism that we're talking about today. And at some point in time, we're going to have to limit what can be done. So I think the proposal that Senator Wardner has, or the governor, I would think needs to be satisfactory for the water community this time, because we know that there's a storm coming down the road with other groups looking at that same thing.
Lance, could I could I make some more comments here? I don't want to take Ron and Representative Schreiber out, but I just got to, because John really brings up a good point. The bonding proposal that I have is not all about water. It's about some other things too. It's about infrastructure, roads and bridges, and taking care of some of the people down that work in the trenches. And some of the things that the governor had, like career and tech in his package, I have in my package. And just remember, we sat down with the governor. We showed him all of our stuff before he came up with his. So he had complete access. He knew exactly what we were doing. Now we will be countering with our own press conference and what we're going to do. But keep in mind, there is a plan here, ladies and gentlemen. You have the general fund that we have to deal with, and we've got to get our ongoing spending and our ongoing revenue matched up. We will get there. because of legacy earnings. But then we have this gap, and that's what this bonding is for. It's a one-time gap bonding. That's what I call it. Then when we move into the next biennium, the legacy earnings are starting to kick in, and we'll be able to take care of some of the things that Representative Nelson talked about, and that is infrastructure, roads, bridges, continue more down that line. And maybe we need to have a stream, as I said, 2 biennium down, the legislature says, well, we need a little bit of that legacy money for water projects. Keep in mind that when we get 3 bienniums out, the earnings could be close to $900 million to $1 billion, and we should be able to take care of our priorities and our needs. Patience, but we got to have a vision. We got to have a plan. Now, the governor set out a plan too for his idea of using the legacy fund. He gave us some of his streams yesterday. I'm not quite in agreement with them. Some of them I am, some of them I'm not. But again, we're going to bring it before the legislature, and the legislature is going to debate it and look at it and go through it and dig through it and come out with the very best product. So anyway, there's a plan here that you need to understand. It isn't only about this bonding, it's about future earnings from the legacy fund. Thank you.
Thanks for that follow-up. One, it's been mentioned, Representative Schmidt's name has been brought up, and I want to make sure you're all aware that he was also invited to this panel, but is in, I think, Mississippi or someplace in the southeast today at an energy conference on behalf of the state of North Dakota. So we did defer, but we have been certainly in touch. One of the things he has mentioned, and the Water Topics Overview Committee highlighted when the Resources Trust Fund revenue dropped off so dramatically, was a proposal to operate on a cash basis instead. And I'm wondering if any of you have been in touch with him or also who are part of that Water Topics Committee. It was discussed, I think, at the Fargo session of that group. Trying to understand if that is, the idea is that we don't have the Water Commission approve projects until they have the resources in place, or if it's a proposal to use the cash that is in the Resources Trust Fund. For example, Senator Sorbog, you said there's, or one of the 2 senators mentioned the excess of $300 million that are in the Resources Trust Fund now, but it's dedicated to a project, so can't be spent. So could you talk a little bit about cash management and what those ideas entail?
Lance, this is Senator Sorbog, and I'll touch it as I see it, because I visited with Representative Schmidt on this too. And what we're talking about, it's not this carryover cash. That's a different subject. It's the new money. And it goes back to last session where first we had 350, then we had 430. And so what the concept is, or the idea, if it's possible to even evolve to it, would be like this strategic investment money was done. It's kind of like what legacy earnings are doing. That cash is there at the end of the biennium, and then you budget it out the next biennium. So let's just go into a make-believe world, because getting there is the difficulty, the bonding. But if at some point, because you can't do it in one step, but the idea would have been last session, if we'd had 380 million of cash earned from the biennium before in the resources, that's what we'd have budgeted. What does that do? That says everybody wouldn't have had to back out on $140 million of projects. The money would have been there. It's a little bit what Prairie Dog was supposed to be. At the end of this biennium, they're getting cash that's in the bank. So you know where you're at going into instead of everybody budgeting and planning on a projection, you're budgeting and planning on the cash that's earned there. So what's earned for the oil extraction for the Resource Trust Fund from the biennium before is what you spend the next one. Now everybody's going, how do you get there? And that's the discussion. Bonding to get that room, it would have to evolve very slowly. And the real hard is how do we get there? But I think at the end of the day, if that could be done, and it's going to take multiple bienniums, I would think everybody would like that before, because when we adjourn then at the end of April, that for that next biennium coming up, you know you can go forward with your project because the cash is already in the bank. And that's the concept. I hope I'm not muddling it the way I'm saying it, but it's a little bit what Strategic Investment Fund was, legacy. The money isn't spent till it's already sitting in the bank. That's what we'd like to evolve to. How we get there is part of the $250 million question. But that's the concept we're looking at. It's the new money if that was already banked. So hopefully that explains it a little bit.
So getting there would be the challenge, as you said, because there could potentially be even greater amounts of money that would be carryover. One of the targets, the criticisms that you sometimes hear from other policymakers is, why aren't they using the 300 million that's already there? Well, of course, we all understand that's promised to a project. The Water Commission doesn't replace or deliver those funds to that project until a phase is done or a piece of that is done. And so in the meantime, it stays with the state. But if the operations were done on a cash basis, as you say, so that you don't approve the projects until the funds are in place, we could be talking about $1 billion potentially that sits in the Resources Trust Fund not being used until a project is done, couldn't we? Some of these things take years, as we know.
Lance, I'd just like to say this comment. Senator Sorvag is absolutely correct. Getting there is a real problem, but if you don't bond, you're going to have a long time before you get there. So have Senator or Representative Schmidt and I had this conversation? You bet we have. I like that idea, but how we get there, and Senator Sorvag laid it out pretty plain that it's tough. But I would say this, all of you people on this line listening would have to be a part of it and say, this is what we want, and we're all going to sacrifice a little bit and work to get there.
And this Senator Sorvag, again, just to expand on that, I think, well, Senator Wardner said it the same as me. We don't know quite how we get there, and you're talking about money in the bank. It all has to be on the table. But at the end of the day, it's about getting a much more predictable funding source for these projects than we have right now, because oil's a commodity and oil's going to go up and down. That's not going to change. And both we got kind of burned twice now in the last 4 or 5 bienniums with crashes in oil. So it's about trying to build in a system of predictability and also using our cash, whether it's carryover. We've got to get more disciplined. If your project isn't happening, the money might go somewhere else. So I'm not saying it's an easy or no-brainer, but what we're doing is trying to drive the discussion. And it's not going to be easy, but it's something that has to be addressed if you're going to continue, because we don't want another biennium where we all of a sudden have to go in and say, we need to take 140 million off the table when a lot of you already have the plans to go forward. And that's what it's trying to prevent, but not implying there's an easy answer to it.
If I could,
Wow, go ahead, John.
if I could, Lance, I think it's, if you look at that issue, you know, again, from the House perspective, those legislators that are mostly against bonding philosophically are the ones that say we shouldn't spend money that we don't have. And this is a tool that I think should be part of the bonding package, that promise is made, that this is a way for us to get to a position where that money is in an account that can be verified, and we know what we have going into the following biennium. So I think that should be a big part of this whole bonding package to bring more people on board. So I like that concept, and I think it should be one of the priorities.
Thank you for all of this conversation about the broad picture. Are there any water policy type issues? Certainly, we've talked a lot about funding and the Water Commission's Resources Trust Fund source and the broader issues, but Representative Schreiber-Beck, you talked in your comments about Water Resource District. Do we anticipate a number of bills with respect to drain tile, about a regionalization of water systems, a focus on uh, rural or versus municipal? I mean, are there expected policy issues that we could anticipate? The Water Topics Committee did not bring any interim legislation forward, but that doesn't mean it won't be coming from somewhere else.
Right. Thanks, Lance. I think that they're in the works. I believe it's looking at in Century Code, the 6116.1, the operation of water resource district boards, and 61-21 drainage assessment projects, that those are being looked at in depth to look at combining that. One of the issues there is the definition of maintenance versus actual rebuilding or repairs, or in order to obtain the cost share. So that's been been an issue, and it's been brought up, I believe, not only to my knowledge, but that whole cost share piece, when maintenance and the definition, they're different in both of those sections of code. So it is important that be actually closely looked at. And I did see the Attorney General's interpretation. That was Senator Wardner's questions. I believe that I saw that. And probably else. So how do, we know there's the shortage of funds. I agree completely with don't spend money till you have it. And, the other part is we really need to keep these assessment drains in good repair. And possibly it's going to take more from the landowners themselves. I don't think that they're necessarily against that paying their fair share, but we also need the commitment from the Water Commission, so some of these projects can get done. And I know there are projects on hold right now based on the Attorney General's opinion. So policy really does need to be looked at carefully so that everybody knows what is the real play. I don't have any other, other than that drainage, looking at the 6132 and getting that more efficient, saving some money, but actually charging those that permit more is also in that particular proposed bill. Questions? I'd happy to.
Lance, I'd just like to say I second what Representative Schreiber-Beck has just said. The idea of improvements and maintenance are going to be a big issue. But there's one other thing that as I learn more and more about the water, the local share is getting to be a real concern. Now, there is an entity, and I won't say who it is, but they would like to have the locals pay a lot more, and the state put in a lot. They're looking at a 50-50 cost share on a lot of projects. I'm concerned about that because I think that if we do go to that, we're going to kill a lot of projects. And one of the projects would be the Red River Valley water supply, because there's a lot of communities that would like to hook up to that system as it goes through the center of the state, but they can't afford it. And so we got to take a good look at this. We should have had a study on it this biennium, but we didn't. But that's something that I'm starting to see as a real issue. What is the cost share for different things? And it shouldn't always be changing, because sometimes there are certain legislators that are able to change it for their area, and then it creates problems. So anyway, that's an issue.
I know we need to wrap this up momentarily, but maybe I shouldn't bring up a rumor, but I guess I'd like confirmation of the rumor. There's talk of a proposal to reorganize the Office of the State Engineer and maybe make it more. It's certainly been very focused on funding lately and cost share and water and cost share policy. Its initial role, I think, in the early 1900s was a regulatory responsibility. And so it's a dual role with a state engineer being responsible for regulation and management, and certainly very prominent lately with the management of grants. Do you see any potential that the State Water Commission and its office might be changed?
Well,
Maybe
This
it's
is
still over.
Senator Wardner. Of course, I know those discussions are going on. However, I'm not not a part of it, but I don't know. I haven't seen the final product. The idea was to replace the state engineer with someone who was more of a business person that would be running the commission. Now, whether that has traction or not, I don't know. But some of the other stuff you mentioned, I can't comment on because I don't really know that much about it. But maybe John knows some things, or Ron, or Cindy.
Well, seeing this is just a small group, and nobody won't get outside this this small group. Those discussions are taking place, and I've been on the peripheral of that. I think Representative Schmidt has talked to me about it, and I think the biggest reason that he would forward this is the communication link between the State Water Commission and the project sponsors. Is sometimes that gap seems to grow in perception, if not reality. And I think that he feels that if there was somebody that had communication skills that might be able to lead that office, that the engineering department, the assistant, I think under his proposal, the assistant in the Water Commission would be that engineering piece, and the communication link would be strengthened with that not being a requirement. It wouldn't necessarily disqualify an engineer from being the director, but certainly wouldn't be a requirement. And I don't know where that's at in the process. He's talked about it conceptually with a number of legislators, and I do know that it's been talked about within the executive branch too. I saw that was not part of the budget, but the governor is aware of this as well.
This is Senator Sarvag, and I just want to say ditto to what Representative Nelson. I've been on the peripheral. I've heard about it. I've visited with Representative Smith, but I am not part of that discussion or really know the details. But I know the discussion's been going on, and really Representative Nelson covered it real well. It's like many things. We're always looking at things. Never get stuck on the idea that what we have is the right way. And this is kind of the communication, and I think there's just a little feeling that the engineer's job is just growing too big and there's too many roles for it. So yes, there's a discussion going on, but where it's at into being a concept, I'm not a party to that at this time.
Well, I just got tapped on the shoulder to look at my watch. I've enjoyed this so much. I didn't realize how fast the time has gone. And so I want to thank all of you. Jeff, do you have any closing remarks, or if any of our guests would like to have closed? We are very, very excited in the water community about the proposals that you have highlighted, Senator Wardner, and wholly, I think, endorse them. Our resolutions process actually starting later this morning to do that, but the Water Coalition was very excited about the idea of bonding to get these major projects funded. Jeff, I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to this group, for your willingness to meet, and honestly, more than anything, the time to be with the water community and answer questions and brief us. And we look forward to seeing what happens over the next several months and where we come out on the other side of this session.
Hear, hear. Thank you.
So all
Good
of you
luck.
appreciate the Zoom